are you?
Good.
I'm good.
Yes. Nothing. The mics are on. Be careful.
Good, Ken. How about yourself? I got the short one here anyway. Better than nothing. Yeah. Yeah, I drove down, drove back, so I didn't have to worry about timing. My luck, the train would be late. I won't be driving anymore though. Parking was $60 a night.
I won't be driving no more either.
I was in New York, $75 an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
An hour?
Yep. Down by City
That's
Hall.
great.
Oh, our parking rates are cheap.
Cheap is not the word.
Everything's relative. Lafayette, extending break.
Cancel my, she called me up about the school, and then she said, oh, by the way, we're gonna cancel the state of the city. I said, talk to the Chamber of Commerce about that. I have nothing to do with it. I just show up. Run away, run away, run away, run away.
They won't be happy about that.
Here we go. Doesn't matter. Thank you. That was nice one. She's, and so the people from, how you doing? People from, Chamber
Comments.
said.
You don't
can
want
have
it
it down
attached to
at
the
one
record then?
Square. You have it where you want. I just show up. So we're thinking about having it out at the Grand Estonian, but not downtown. Estonian in Palmer County. Normally I would be upset, but it's an emergency. I don't care. I said, you have it where you think you can have it. I don't care.
So you
But
don't.
you just tell me when and where. I said, I might be asking you to postpone it by next week.
Hey,
I don't know.
who knows? Yeah.
I said, I don't know. Right today, I wouldn't postpone it. Next week,
What's that?
we get a couple cases in Easton. I might say
Yeah,
it's
just say you're
postponed.
submitting comments for the
And then
record.
we'll have it later, like in May.
It's postponed.
Why? Yeah, you don't have to.
The playoffs.
I've seen that done before.
Lewis, you just want them attached to the minutes, not read.
That's correct.
The councilman out in Cleveland, they're really upset because the first round is out
Okay,
in
but
Cleveland.
not gonna read
Yes,
them.
it canceled it.
We're gonna say that we had some though, right?
No
But
fans.
the fans, yeah.
About
That's a
$8
lot of
million
revenue.
loss
Yeah. A
to
revenue
the
loss.
economy.
Yeah.
Said, hey,
Do what you gotta do for safety.
that's right.
But Nikki was complaining about today at breakfast. She goes, Buffy cancels classes with us too.
Oh, so it's gonna get cold?
That's right. That's right. That's
So she
true.
was really worried
Yeah, it's a big,
economically, yeah.
Oh, I can't.
Hi, Jim.
That's right.
You gotta get over there.
I go over there, but I can't get my emails. I ain't getting any emails since Sunday when they shut down the computer and went to Office
365.
365. Now my phone, I had to send a text to all my directors telling me to use my personal. Now I can't get to my.
I couldn't get it. I can't get it on my desktop. I just gave him my mini to hook up.
Testing.
Hopefully it goes.
Yeah,
Hey, Dick.
because you had to switch over to the 365.
Okay.
Talk to Dustin about it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to call this stated session of City Council order. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the pledge of the flag. Mr. Brown?
Our Father and God, we thank you for an opportunity to serve thy people. We ask that you give us wisdom and knowledge that you would have us to do what the people in this city want us to do. And we're blessed for it. In your name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Here. We'll have approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'd like to amend the agenda.
Sure.
Now, I have a question. I have a question on the consent agenda, on the C. Would you prefer that I ask it when we do the consent agenda, or
I
would
would
you
prefer that you ask that it be removed to new
the end?
business.
Okay,
And
fine.
then we'll talk about your amendment.
Then I am making a motion to remove C from the consent agenda to the end.
Just a question.
You just have to request it being removed.
Oh, okay.
So, unless there's any opposition, which I doubt.
No,
So, okay,
I'm requesting then.
all right. So we're removing letter C from number 10, the consent agenda. We'll discuss it under new business.
Thank you.
Any other amendments or deletions, additions? Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Then you're gonna do the minutes?
So at this time, as custom annually and required by the city's local charter.
Mayor, we have to approve the minutes
Yeah,
first.
we have to
Oh,
approve the
go ahead.
minutes. I was gonna say, don't we have to approve the minutes?
Okay, we want to approve the minutes from the February 26th meeting.
I move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Now you're-
So now I'll do the state of city. As required by the city charter, the mayor has to give the state of the city before he or she gives it to any other organization. Has to be at a public meeting. And the Chamber of Commerce State of the City has been up in the air next Friday for those of you that we're going to attend. It definitely won't be held at Lafayette College. I'll get to that in my report about coronavirus. And if it is, it may be someplace else or it may be postponed indefinitely. But it is a chamber event. They just tell me where to show up. So, I'm going to start with State of the City. I would be remiss if I first didn't recognize Vice Mayor Brown and Councilmember Milan. Both had really nice articles in their, one was in the Ohio University
Yes.
at Athens, and one was in the local papers. Two good things being done by all of our councilmen, but those two just happened to be recognized this week. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize all of the employees, not just the senior staff that are here, but everyone from cutting grass to filling potholes to providing protection for our neighborhoods to providing the vision for the future of our city. They work every day to serve us, and sometimes us elected officials get the credit, but really the staff they do a great job. They don't always get that credit, but they certainly do a great job. So when I took office in 2008, we all know that Act 47 was looming, millions of dollars in debt. Today, we're very fortunate. We're a different city, a different place, and above all, we're a different group of people who are all coming together for a change, to work together rather than tear us apart. Finances will always be the foundation of what we do. Taxes have remained level, although our revenues have gone up. And I think that's the most important part. We have two things I say all the time. You can either raise taxes to meet annual needs, or you can grow your economy. And we've done a great job of growing the economy, not just the real estate taxes, but the business taxes, the local income tax, et cetera. We also, in our general fund, it goes up every year. So you have to have new money. You can't cut the budget when 80% of it is personnel. So you can't cut the budget. What can we do? We can find ways of finding the money to fund the services that our residents want and deserve. In 2019, we also presented a 5-year capital plan that was part of the budget process that you approved in 2020. The plan provides timelines and funding expectations for infrastructure, sanitary, storm, wastewater, vehicle replacement. We probably have the best vehicle fleet that this city has ever had in the 35 years that I know of. Our fleet is up to date, and that's because we made a decision in 2008 to create that city capital fund, which is funded by economic development. Every new project is paying towards that fund. And we put that money in there. We put all one-shots in there so that we're not overly inflating our general fund, so that if we get $1 million this year, we put it in our general fund, and it's not there next year, it's a $2 million spread. Because you have $1 million expenses and you have $1 million of revenue that you don't have. So we don't do that anymore. We put it into the capital fund, and that capital fund has been doing a number of things. No doubt that the home sales are up. We know that that is great, but it's also a two-sided sword because it also provides affordable housing problems that we will get to as well in this state of the city. But home sales both are up in numbers and also in cost. But our year-end balances continue to be strong. Last year, we probably did suffer a little bit of a loss because of we didn't get our 2019 numbers yet, but you know, we had some situations where we had at the fire department with the amount of overtime that we did not expect. Those are going to add to the amount of our budget surplus for last year, but we've been doing good. There's no doubt that the biggest challenge facing all Pennsylvania cities is our pension legacy cost. I'm not talking about current employees. I'm not talking about current pension problems. I'm talking about legacy costs that go back to the 50s when cities were giving better benefits than salaries, and now our salaries are just as good as the private sector, but our pensions and our benefits are still equally as good as well. So we have a pension legacy cost that the state legislature will not tackle. They won't. So what could we do? Well, there's not much we can do locally, but we can make sure that the amount of money we have in our pension fund is invested at the best maximum rate of return. In 2008, we came in, we put it out to bid. We changed our financial investors to a new group. They were here for 10 years. We put it out for bid again. And that's not just us. The administration works with the Aggregated Pension Board, which is made up of members of the union and the city administration. And Morgan Stanley was awarded the contract now, and they'll be reviewed in 5 years and 10 years again. And other than last week, we were doing really well. But no one's doing well right now, as we all know. And that's not their fault, and it's not our fault. We did suffer one negative in our finance department. It's a big one. We prided ourselves for 12 years of getting an A-plus bond rating. Our bond rating was downgraded to an A-minus. Still good, and still very good for the Northeast, but it was downgraded. It was downgraded primarily because of a private sector development that was going to require a lot of city finances. And that, of course, was the Da Vinci project. And that project, it took, 3 or 4 phone calls with S&P to try to say, no, that's not what we're doing. They were given a lot of bad information about the project that we're going to hand over to Da Vinci a $30 million check. And obviously that would concern any rating agency. So we did work through them, and they did downgrade us to A+, but they told us right out that without that project, and obviously we're not doing that project, there should be no reason why the next time we go to the bond market that it's not back up to an A+. But public safety is without a doubt the foundation of what our success ratio has been. From gangs and violence and shootings and homicides to a rather calm city. Now, I know we don't have that reputation, but the police department has done a great job of communicating with the people, working as community police officers, now equipped with body cameras and other things to make sure that our community has less tension and less violence. Shootings have diminished immensely. Gangs have diminished immensely. Violence has diminished immensely. And I know that Chief and the Captain don't want me to say it, but we haven't had a homicide in 3 years. And that can't even be said by some of our local suburbs. And I don't mean to jinx it, but the fact of the matter is we still have this perception that we're the wild, wild west, and that's just not the case. So, our body cameras, our crime rate kept falling and falling. And in 2008, we were at over 1,300 incidents, and last year we were down to 531. That was a tick up. There's no doubt about it. And we told you last year that we don't know how long we can keep going down. We are a city. We are an urban center. So we're going to have some crime. The good news is they haven't been the violent crimes. The tick up has really been in theft and burglary, and that's a lot related to the drug culture and to our unfortunate economic status where people are hurting and they need to go out and steal things, and that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right at all. Body cameras have been installed. In-car cameras have been updated, and those things are there to prevent the type of lawsuits that we suffered a decade ago. I already reported that our last year, we've just made off our last payment on a horrific accident, a horrific issue, but it was a $5 million settlement. And that $567,000 a year is no longer being paid. In the fire department, guys are doing a great job. Regardless of what we need to do to get it under control as far as equipment, as far as fire stations, we know we need to put some money into them. The firefighters have done a great job. Last week we had a fire up on the College Hill. It was contained to the second floor bathroom. Big home, could have been $600,000-$700,000 in property losses. It wasn't. It was less than $20,000. One of the negatives that I think our chief is working on is he's not here, is he? Good, I can talk about him. Chief Krill recognized that most of our employees don't live in the city of Easton anymore. And we lost that battle back in the 80s when the courts just said, no, you cannot. Residency is not a requirement. And we certainly understand it for our professional positions and maybe our police and our fire, but for a firefighter that doesn't know the area, it's hard to come in. And for people in our own city that need a good job, we don't know why they're not applying. So the chief has been out to have his youth fire academy. And it's to get young men and young women interested. He's been hosting it over at the Boys and Girls Club, interested in becoming a firefighter. Not only has he taken them through the physical agility test, what they need to be able to prepare to do, such as drag that 150-pound body, but also what they need to do for passing the test to get on the list. So hopefully, we won't see returns for maybe 5 or 10 years, but hopefully we'll be able to do that. But right now we're out. The police department, that application process is closed as of the end of February. We'll be hiring more police officers or on the list. We'll be hiring more firefighters. As you know, we hired 6 last year. So I think this is modeled after the mayor's summer youth camp, and I think it'll be a good thing for all of us. Human resources, close to 28% of our city's workforce is eligible for retirement. 28%. And the administration has been strategically focusing on implementing and knowledge management systems to offset the human brain drain that's happening over the next 7 years. To the extent the Human Resources Department has been reviewing and updating all job descriptions, as you know, because you're approving them. And in some cases, positions are being repurposed to accommodate changes in technology. As you know, Dustin's back there. He was added to our workforce last year. We gave Frank a helper, and it's still not enough. You're going to see increases in our information technology because we're going to anything that makes our jobs smarter. Not necessarily lighter, but smarter. Such as we just switched over this weekend to Office 365, cloud-based, so that we diminish our exposure to cyber ransom, which is a big thing right now. Just ask Allentown, who had to pay to get their city information back. So Human Resources is working on that, and the next thing they're working on is records management of how they can keep their records managed as well as all the other departments, and including city council's ordinances, and they'll be working with human resources and the information technology division. In the information technology division, I told you a lot about the upgrades in both between them and human resources under the city administrator. We came up with this, we went to a new alert system, which is called Easton Alert. It's our own. It gives the person who signs up the ability to determine which type of alerts they want. I don't happen to be on a street sweeping alert. One of the things that I didn't sign up for it, One of the things I get called on a lot of times, people are getting parking tickets because they're parked on the wrong side of the street, but the street sweeper never comes through. Well, they can be told at that time they could sign up for Nixle and do that. They now make it's a little easier to sign up for East Alert, and if they want to check off street cleaning, when their street is not going to be cleaned, they get an alert saying 700 to 900 block of Ferry Street will not be cleaned today because of malfunction. Period. If they want to be notified on pets that are lost, they can be notified or not notified. We wanted to make sure that it didn't become a cry wolf, that people will get the information they need, not all the different texts that are coming out. As I said, Public Works is the largest department and has a great fleet with both equipment and vehicle stock. But they're the largest, and they present everything from trash collection on city streets and parks to recycling pickup, municipal recycling drop-off, e-waste, youth recreation, neighborhood programming, special event support, street sweeping, curbside leaf and brush, and all these other, and of course the three big ones, water, wastewater, and stormwater. Due to the significant number of major assets, they've also implemented last year the iWork platform, which will now, as a new person comes in and the person who has all the information up here in their head leaves, they will have in the iWork all the things that need to be known. For example, when I was in property management, we may have 45 buildings with over 400 apartments. And Mr. O'Connell was certainly in that division too. You know that you can't, if you have a new maintenance pro, you can't possibly treat them. But in there, it'll tell you where the demarc is for telephone, where the electric fuse boxes are, where the water meter is, where the maintenance rooms are, what the codes is to get in and out of buildings, all those things that a person needs to maintain the city's assets. DPW also completed a feasibility study and draft conceptual design for Wood Avenue. It is anticipated that this $1.5 million project will start sometime this year, later this year. The department also made progress on a downtown circulation project, which involves the potential conversion of an existing ring road to two-way, as well as Center Square and the Center Square Park. The Highway Bureau also milled and surfaced nearly 2.5 miles of roads. There's no doubt that our roads were a mess. Our streets were a mess, and they're still a mess because of the utility companies, especially UGI. But you know what? As I tell people when they call me up, I understand UGI makes a mess. They do a trench. They have to temporarily patch it for 60 to 90 days, and then they come back. You've done something that Mr. Hopkins has asked you to do is you no longer do they just have to repair the patch. If it's wide, they got to do the whole lane, curb to the middle of the lane, so that we don't have these people walking around. We're spending a lot of money on our streets, and I can tell you, Wolf Avenue was completely redone, 4 years ago, Dave? 4 years ago. It's a mess. It's a rubber board because the utility companies have been out there ripping it up. So they did 2.5 million miles of roads, placed roughly 4,500 tons of blacktop in the neighborhoods just last year. And the annual street sweeping program collected 800 cubic yards of litter and debris from our city streets. That is part of our MS4 program. We don't want the sediment going into the rivers because that's what our permit requires us to take out. So the Bureau also collected 3,000 bags of leaves and 900 Christmas trees. We're not a big city. A lot of people like those natural trees. Plus another 1,750 cubic yards of leaves down at the pickup site where you can take your clippings anytime you want down to our recycling center. It was also a great year for Parks and Recreation. We acquired, as you know, the Easton Iron and Metal site. That will undergo its remediation this year, plus hopefully some kind of development into a park in the next couple of years as we work on that. And we partnered with Lafayette College, and we got a $1.3 million contract, a grant from the state to help us with all the infrastructure around there, around that parcel, as well as the bridge, the railroad trestle that goes across the Bushkill Creek will now be upgraded so it becomes a pedestrian bridge, as well as the one at Silk. That new Silk Bridge is 135 feet. It was $400,000. Not one penny came from the city. It was grants that Mr. Hopkins was able to get. It was private investment from Silk, and today it's open. The department also began working on Hackett Park improvements. You probably haven't been up there during this mild winter that we've had, but the connections up there and the things we're doing, and hopefully even replacing and upgrading the historic lights that are up there that used to be up there. They haven't, since I was a kid, I don't remember them being there. All right, that's how long it's been. But they're beautiful stone piers. And at the top were lanterns of lights. They're working on getting them. Looking forward to that. They're also, obviously, that department, the director is the point person for our new 4th Street garage and all of our MS4 efforts, as we continue as well to be a Tree City USA designation. We've had a Tree City USA designation since I was in office back in '84. We lost it for a few years in the '90s, but we've been, I don't know how many, like 15 years in a row or 16 years in a row. And, you know, I know some people don't believe in climate change. I happen to believe that it is a real thing. Science tells me it is, and I believe in science. But the fact of the matter is, the best way to mitigate climate change, especially reducing carbon footprint, is to clean our air, and trees do that really well. So, in addition to that, they get a day off every now and then. The city continues to evolve as a hot spot of local and regional activity. As such, the city has seen a resurgence in businesses locate here. Residents move in. City festivals continue to attract more visitors each year. Permit and inspection applications in 2019 continue to indicate that Easton continues to have a high level of confidence for investment. The activity, which resulted in 3,455 inspections. We could talk about things like Silk Mill. Silk didn't just bring people to live there. Every one of those businesses is thriving. You know, from the restaurants, the ice cream parlor, the hair salons, the massage place, and the new barbershop that just opened up that was an extension of Gentleman's Barbershop downtown. He opened up a second location right in the little building on 13th Street. This project alone is adding hundreds of thousands of dollars just in local taxes now. And it doesn't come off the Keystone Opportunity Zone in 2020 till 2023, which is going to be even more of an impact. Some of the projects that have already started this year that our code team has been working on, in addition to working on this complete census report. I want to thank Councilman O'Connell for working on that as well, and Tracy been getting the word out. Kind of concerned, one of the things that the coronavirus is going to, Lafayette College is closing for three weeks. That means during April 1st, those students will not be on campus. They won't be opening until later in the month of April. Very common with a lot of the colleges we're hearing about, and it's a good prevention. But we need those 2,400 students in our count. And so we're working with the college, not only on their closure and the coronavirus, et cetera, but also working on with them about the census. This building is probably the last really, really bad building in the city. There's no doubt that we thought it was going to have to be demolished. And we've had structural engineers who said the same thing. You may see the steel bands on it. Dr. Ruggles and I have watched that building for the last couple of years every Monday morning. And Borco, who did the Hogtown building, which is this building, he has a really good knack for attacking the problem buildings, the problem properties. The Hogtown building sold all of his condominiums within 10 days. They're beautiful. He might even make the building on Northampton Street condos. He's not sure. But it's a good project for us. And between that and some of the other things that are happening, even in the West Ward, we hear that we don't care about the West Ward. This neighborhood on Walnut Street was without a doubt one of the worst blocks in the city. I was here back in the 80s when we did the Dollar House deal, and we started that project, and some of those projects are still there. Like the Gangwares still live in that beautiful single brick. Right across the street, we have both properties now under the one on the right, the tall 4-story building on the right, stopped for many, many months, maybe even a year or two. It's back under construction, and the one on the left, the gray siding, is brand new. It's a new stick-built construction. We also have downtown a new boutique hotel opening up. The owners of Ocean, River Grill, and Oak are opening up what was a very badly dilapidated, vacant property for probably, I want to say, upwards of almost 8 to 10 years. The front is a beautiful historic building. They've added an addition onto the back. It'll be a small boutique hotel. On Spring Garden Street, we've had burned out vacant buildings that are now beautiful back on the tax rolls, as you can see. Right down the street from Clay Mittman's property that he and his wife just did. It's a 1-unit rental. It's an old colonial brick townhouse. We have on the 6th and Northampton Street, probably the block that my dad told me when I was 16 years old I couldn't travel on. Don't stop at 6th and Northampton. I don't care if you have to go over the hill. Don't stop at 6th and Northampton. And then, of course, the city tore down that bar and put the fire station here. But right across the street, Angelone's restaurant, we brought them in when I was mayor last time. They were a great restaurant, but they didn't last too long because they were before their time. And today, it's being brought back up to code, back up to a beautiful building, and Magic Walk will be opening up in a few months. This building got the mayor's preservation award. It's a typical home in West Ward that for some reason everybody wanted to just start covering up the beautiful architecture. And certainly they did on this building because this is what was exposed. And the Marin's law firm did a great job on this project. Imagine that arched window was there and they just covered it up, they squared it off. And they got the mayor's, one of the mayor's restoration awards this year. And, well, last year, because I'm doing last year's State of the City. And this one over on Valley Street, a project that basically, again, took a brick building and put siding on it. And it was aluminum siding, no less. It wasn't even concrete board. So, or hardy board, they're calling it now. But that building over was a Habitat for Humanity building, and we're very proud of that one as well. This one, on the left, is the 119 South 9th Street, which is part of our affordable housing program, being done by Mr. Kingsley and the Redevelopment Authority for the city. And the one on the right is on Pearl Street. And unfortunately, the structural analysis of that building isn't good. It's going to have to be torn down, but we're going to build something there that's representative of that neighborhood, and it'll be ADA compliant. It'll be sold to a person that is ADA, definitely has some disabilities, and low to moderate income. All the properties that we buy and we fix up are for low to moderate income families. But we also have retail going on. Believe it or not, the new paradigm of retailing is online, delivery. But guess what? We have more retail stores opening up downtown last year than ever. And these are some ones that I just happened to take a picture of before I left for Washington. We have a jewelry store on 2nd Street at the top left-hand corner, the Christine's Body and Bath on the right side, and of course down below we have the new Co-works place and the art gallery. We have all different types of things. Our newest project downtown that between Stephen and David, a number of us are working on, is the 4th Street Garage. And they worked with Christine Usler, the Historic Commission's consultant, to come up with a design. And as you can see, it's going to be about 470 cars. And it's going to also have next to it, between that and the public market, a pedestrian plaza, which will be a place where people can mingle, can go out. It'll have trees. It'll have a place for people to sit and eat, and it'll be a place for people to congregate. On the 100 block on Northampton Street, we have the Commodore Project, which will also feature a rooftop restaurant. And, of course, we have brownfields in the city. And as former Mayor Callahan knows, as a member of the board of the National League of Cities, I testified for brownfield funding before the Congress, and we still are getting money. And we've been able to attract quite a few IRS. Matter of fact, John had me sign 2 more payment releases tonight. So one of the brownfields is over on South Side. It's the Black Diamond property, which has been vacant and blighted for decades. Can't even say years. That'll be a attainable housing program. It'll be rental units for families below not below the poverty line, but below the median income of 80%, all the way down to 15% of median income. Across the street, we have Easton Yards. It's an old factory, now going to be apartments. And, I know everybody hears apartments. Well, you've got to go for owner-occupied. Young people don't want owner-occupied. The American dream is just to have a lot of money. It's not a lot of house. But anyway, across the street, the third corner is the new A.W. Cheston School. We want to thank the school district for building that. It's a beautiful building. It'll be opening up this September. Downtown, across the street, we have Hearst Publishing coming in with 175 employees. That was the old Pep Boy building, and then Heritage Lanes Bowling, and now it's going to have 175 employees. As you can see, it's almost under roof. Perron is here tonight, and they will be developing the Seville down on North 3rd Street. which will be apartments on the upper levels and commercial on the first level. On the Ari Schwartz's project on the 600 block of Northampton Street will be a grocery store with apartments. 600 block has really come around. It's the longest block in the city. It was the most blighted, but it's really come to pass. This is the project right outside the door here, which is being done by the Benner family. And of course, not everything was a success. I'm not here to brag about our state of the city. We've had our challenges, and Da Vinci was a challenge, but it was still something I believe in, but it was something that just didn't develop the way we thought it was, and we had to back out. And we're glad we backed out because this is the project that'll be there within the next 2 years. And not only is this project a great project looking, it's more keeping with the character of the neighborhood. On the 4th Street side, this is the way the building will look. It'll look like where I just came from, Washington, D.C. I mean, that's what you have. You have the true original colonial townhouses. So we're really excited about that. The economic impact is phenomenal, and that's what we want. We want to create good design structures that add to the historic district, not subtract. And so I had to bring up this one. This one was back in 2006 and 7, and maybe Mr. Brown and Mrs. Volcano remember, but it was Riverwalk. I've been getting a lot of complaints, and the same people who are complaining to me about, oh, you're getting too big. This was a monstrosity.
Yes.
And it was supported heavily by the former administration. And I walked away from it when I became mayor in 2008. And I said, we don't want any part of it. And it just, oh, I'm sorry, that's not Riverwalk. Yeah, it is Riverwalk.
That's Riverwalk.
I'm sorry, it's just not the kind of building we want. What we're getting with like 185 is much better than what Riverwalk is. Murals are placemaking. It's a placemaking. It's something that's Easton, not something else. When you see that mural on the 600 block of Northampton Street, you know it's placemaking. And all of this is important, but it's really cooperation we've had with places like Lafayette College. Lafayette College invites me up every year to talk to the parents before they leave their children for the freshman year. And I speak up there, and I give everybody my cell phone number because I think it's important that they understand that this is their home for 4 years, and they're entrusting their kids to us. And I give them my cell phone in case something happens. And believe it or not, last year we had a terroristic threat, which wasn't real, but it was true, and I had calls from as far away as California. A mother wanted to get on her plane and come take her daughter home. And I said, just wait, I'm up here. I was at with the chief at the public safety building on campus, and the Department of Justice and FBI were there, and we pretty much knew it was a hoax, but obviously you got to still take it. Our police went through every building to make sure, but I told the mother she didn't have to get on a plane. In addition, we do a lot of promotion. College helps us on a number of things. They're one of our sponsors of this billboard, which looked horrible for 10 years, but nobody knew who owned it. So now the college, Valor Insurance, and the Easton Chamber have helped us put together a billboard there, and Jim Petrucci has let us use that board. It's on his property, and you'll see it changing probably in a few weeks. We keep it updated now, like 3 or 4 times a year. Not the same ugly billboard for 10 years. But the new Lafayette College campus residence hall is being built. It's under construction. And the trolley stop, very historic name for the first electric trolley in the United States that went from downtown Center Square up to College Hill and then up to Paxinosa Inn. And the college was involved, so they came up with the trolley stop for the diner that they're going to have. Their bookstore will be off campus now, so people can readily access adult wear and athletic wear. We had a grant. We were able to go out to Harrisburg, get a grant for Cattell Street, one of the busiest streets and most dangerous streets in the city. There's no doubt about that. We're going to try to make it a little bit more pedestrian safety within the confines of what PennDOT will allow us to do. So this summer, you should see that project starting with some pedestrian bump outs, so it's easier to cross the street. And then, of course, we did lose some, but we got it back. So Easton Baking went out of business, but they came back, and I just thought that was with Hun. You got to know Hun. If you've ever been in here, you know Hun, all right? So All these projects are really good for the city, and all these developments mean more tax dollars to our city so that there are more and more people and more taxable properties paying their fair share, lessening the burden on our existing residents, businesses, and property owners. Look, I can't stop expenses from going up. There's no doubt about that. And city council knows I say this all the time. You're either going to raise taxes or you're going to raise the economy. And we've done a good job of raising the economy, and so property taxes haven't gone up in 12 years, and our major fees such as trash and sewer haven't gone up in 11 years. If you want it to be affordable for people to live in Easton, you can't keep raising it. Prior to my administration, 4 years before that was 107%. Even wealthy people don't want their taxes going up 107%. We don't sit by and wish for improvement. We'll continue to make things happen to improve our city. And while our critic will say Da Vinci was a failure, the proposed project is more than better. It's not only better for Easton, it's better for within a couple of $100,000, almost $1 million in new tax dollars to the city annually. That's more than 3 mills of taxes. And as I said, when I leave office, all these projects come off the roll, back on the rolls in 2023. The city will have money that it didn't know it had and be able to do the improvements that it really needs. There are no doubt that there are improvements we need, but we have to keep putting them down the line because the money just isn't there. Our staff is devoted to making Easton more prosperous, more inclusive, and more vibrant. Not only for our residents, but our visitors as well. Yes, Easton is back, but today is no time to rest our successes. It's to talk about the challenges of tomorrow. There's no doubt that we face challenging times. Our national discourse, once filled with hope and optimism, has been replaced with cynicism and hatred and anger. Federal politics today is no longer politics of cooperation and compromise, but politics of divisiveness. And I'm talking both sides of the aisle. I'm not talking Republican, Democrat. I'm talking about the problems facing us on a federal level. We have issues such as affordable housing and homelessness that cannot be addressed on the local level. We need the federal support. We need a federal partner. We are steadfast in the conviction that our city's strength comes from our diversity and a fierce sense of unity, equity, and inclusion. We may have debates, there's no doubt about it, but we all seek to do what's best for the people we serve. We may take different paths, but our destinations will always be the same. We face significant challenges in affordable housing, affordable rental rates, creating infill construction, but preserving our historic structures, improving our infrastructure, strengthening our economic base and tourism, preparing the impacts for climate change, addressing the opioid crisis, and finding a balance between rampant growth and smart growth. All these challenges need to be met and not met by just increasing taxes and fees on our current residents. For a community that saw a decline in population beginning in the 50s, to a community that was torn down in the 60s and 70s, today we're a community that has seen significant growth and a true renaissance, but not just physically, a renaissance with attitude that people have today, with culture, with art. Our artists are doing a great job all throughout the city, not just with murals and bike racks, but galleries are opening, and the Carl Sterner Art Show is becoming a national known model for what to do with old railroad sidings. Our focus must turn to optimizing this growth while maintaining our diversity and creating benefits for all. William Shakespeare said, "What is a city but the people?" This is so true for Easton, as our volunteers have made our city special. Whether born and raised here or a newcomer, the people that live here are what make this city special. Without the people, this beautiful city would be nothing more than a Hollywood set. It's the people that make our city. I'm proud of the work we've accomplished together, the investments we made in our community, and the foresight of our progressive plans for the future. It is with the same sense of camaraderie that we continue to carry on our traditions, take pride in our rich history, and at the same time, embrace the diversity and change that moves us forward together in a way that we will make a positive district. Our historic city is evolving all the time. In conclusion, I'd like to point out a few things. And I'll leave coronavirus for the last. A home is the social foundation that a family's economic security is built on. It's the one item that a low-income family can build family equity. They buy the house, they're paying the mortgage, and its value is going up, their debt's going down, and they actually have money. We need home ownership for those that want to own a home. We don't need their income to be a block. We need them to be able to do that. And we will spending more and more time looking at ways of creating affordable housing in Easton, while also not turning our back on people who can afford to hire houses. I mean, let's be honest. I grew up in public housing, and I believe we do a good job for our low income. I don't think we're doing a good job for our working poor. The person who has a family of four making $30,000, $32,000 a year, that's the group I'm talking about. I'm talking about making sure that we bring back that middle class neighborhood that I grew up in, that was so good. Like I tell everybody, I didn't know I was poor. My family didn't know we were poor. We did everything we wanted to do. We were outside every night until the lights came on, right? So we believe that the American dream should be a dream for all. And when the market refuses to respond, we must step in and ensure that the access to the home ownership is available. And the program that we're starting in the Redevelopment Authority, you're going to see more and more of those homes. The home on South 9th Street is beautiful. It's a starter home. But if somebody buys it for $105,000 and lives in it for 10 years, they can sell it with a down payment on another home. And maybe they've elevated their salary. Maybe they've elevated their profession. That's why we brought CareerLink in the community college down here last year, because we wanted the skill set to be able to get the jobs for the future. So homelessness is really related to affordable housing for so many people. They're one financial crisis away from being evicted from their home. They're not owners if they can't live at home. Mortgage company's going to put them out on the street if they miss more than one or two more payments. The landlord's going to put them out on the street. So if they go to work and have a flat tire, and it's going to cost $200, do they fix the tire or do they pay the rent or mortgage? And that's where we're at, people. We're not in a good place in this country for that vulnerable population. We need to do something to help them. The last issue I want to address is another national issue. It's a world issue. That, of course, is the COVID-19 coronavirus. I get blamed for going to Washington. I get blamed for meeting with the vice president. I get blamed because they're saying the city's not doing anything. Well, we are. Just so council knows, you got an update last week from me that we've been talking to the healthcare. A pandemic is not, as we talked about when we met with the county officials, we have plans for national or natural disasters. We have plans for mass fatalities, like in an earthquake or something. We don't have a plan for a pandemic because we're not healthcare providers. So we are going to remind people constantly of what we learned in the last couple of weeks, that we can prevent it, and we need to prevent it. We need to wash our hands. We need to stop sneezing on people. We need to, keep our distance. Don't handshake. Do the elbows that we did all weekend down in Washington. The vice president challenged us today for a couple of things, and I think the administration is reacting. We just put a newsletter out to our staff. For example, there's no more copay. The insurance companies have agreed that there will be no copay for anyone who goes to the doctor because they think they have coronavirus. We'd rather people get treatment and get there before it gets to be serious. And there's no, and the insurance carriers will take coronavirus as a issue that they'll cover under their insurance plans. And we just put that out to our residents, to our employees. To our residents, panic has set in. It's unfortunate, but it has. As it would with anything like this. It's scary. There's no doubt about that. My father's 92 and a half years old. It's scary. I told him, don't leave your house. But the rest of us have to use our common sense judgment. Washing your hands was always something you did. But we want to wash our hands. But what happens is the panic that set in has eliminated everything from toilet paper to surgical masks to rubber gloves, surgical gloves. And the people who really need it, that are taking care of the sick in the hospitals, they can't get it. And so I caution people not to let panic judge what you're going to do, but make your decisions. Do you need to go? We're going to meet on Monday. I invite you to meet with us on Monday. We're meeting with stakeholders in the community that have large groups. We know that the college is going to close for a couple weeks, and we've heard about other colleges. University of Maryland closing everything down. Governor of Ohio saying no. The first regional playoffs for the March Madness. There's not going to be any fans. It's about an $8 million blow to their economy. We want you to take, we want our people to take action. But the plans that we put out, you know, don't shake hands, don't huggy-feely people. You know, when you go up to them, hit their elbow, hit their toes, whatever you want to do, but don't suscept yourself to any type of really serious contact with people that you don't know may or may not be a carrier. More importantly, it's our economy, and even in Easton, it's our economy. Yeah, we hear about people not getting on the airplane. I was talking to a gentleman from Texas. When he came up to Washington, there were 8 people on the plane. 8. Talked to people who, you know, in our hotel, we made them sanitize every room before we got there, and they have Purell everywhere we went, and everybody was given a bottle for ourselves, a hand sanitizer. But we need to communicate to everyone, that everyone needs to be cognizant of those types of prevention. We got to make sure our first responders have the tools that they need when they go to take care of someone. Our police officers, our firefighters, they need to be prepared. And these are some of the things we're going to talk about on Monday. And we're going to talk with people who, like the State Theater. What are they going to do? Crayola experience. You have 2,500 people in that building every weekend, each day. What are they going to do? The college, the churches. Yeah, it's easy for people to say, oh, the mayor should have teleconference. I could Skype. I know how to do that. My laptop will do that. But I chose to go there to lessen the fear that we can't let panic rule our daily lives. Because if people start staying home from work, if people start not going to our restaurants or our theaters, they all hurt, and we hurt as well. So I want to ask that we look at that because we want to make the right decisions. As I told you in my inaugural address, when one of today's students, perhaps your grandchild or my grandchild, is being sworn in as a council member or a mayor in the future, I want them to be able to say that back in the day, our day, we made the right choices and did the right thing. And people, we're elected officials. For some reason, these pandemics, which is worldwide, falls on our shoulders. So if you have any ideas, if you have anything, let us know. Because no one has all the answers, not even the vice president today. But he did challenge us to have these meetings. Ours was already set up. But he also challenged us to make sure we invite the senior homes. And very honestly, the senior home shouldn't be allowing visitors. That is a very vulnerable population. You know, my dad, he's housebound. He's not going out. We know his house is okay. And the only people going to visit him are his children and his family. So, now more than ever, it's important that we work together as one city. Just look what Washington, D.C. is the alternative. I can't even say it that way. The only thing that's bringing them together is the coronavirus. I heard former Speaker of the House Paul Ryan. I heard Nancy Pelosi. I heard Michael Bloomberg. I heard Tulsi Gabbard. I heard Vice President Pence. All 5 of them, D's, R's, independent, doesn't matter. They all were there to tell us that this is important. And that's, at least we know they'll come together when there's a national thing. I firmly believe now is Easton's time. We've waited 50 years. We're not going to stop the progress that our family and children need, that our city needs. Let's give our children the opportunity, our seniors security, and our economy new vitality by spurring housing affordability and working regionally to bring family sustainable jobs to the Lehigh Valley. Thank you. John Kingsley, we'll have our final public comment on 185 project before we go to vote later this evening. Coronavirus? Monday at 9.
Good evening, City Council. John Callahan with Prawn Development. I have to tell you, it's a tough act to follow. I didn't know I was going to follow Sal's state of the city. I haven't given a state of city in about 6 years, so I got a little rust I got to shake off here.
You're only gonna make it better.
No, for sure. I'm not going to do the speech better. That's for sure.
No, the state of the city will
yes,
be better.
we hope to. Yeah, I will tell you this kind of while Carlos is setting up the presentation. I will tell you that we are, having your enthusiasm, Mayor Panto, is infectious. It's obvious that there's a lot of great things happening in Easton. When our group presented last time we were here, we talked about kind of how impressed we are and how excited we are to be a part of Easton's future, both with the 56 North 3rd Street project, the Seville, and hopefully with the council support this evening, the 185 South 3rd Street project. So, and as exciting as these big projects are, nothing makes me happier than the before and after pictures of facade improvements. They really is. It's really the bread and butter of what makes cities grow. It's that block by block and storefront by storefront improvement, and it's wonderful to see the progress throughout the city of Easton that's occurring in all the neighborhoods and all the blocks. So your focus early on in the clean and safe and strengthening the city's finances, and providing sort of doing the more with less and providing city services at a high level is kind of why the private sector follows behind, because we want to be in a stable environment that we can be confident that if we make these investments, they're going to be successful over the long term. So all of these things go together. Growing the city's tax base, tough for a city like Easton, which doesn't have a tremendous opportunity for growth, and certainly the 185 site is one of the rare opportunities where Easton can, as I've said in the past, sort of think appropriately big and in a way that makes sense for the scale of Easton. And I think I was encouraged by the sort of, in a way, the before and after of the Da Vinci site and then our site right behind. And when you just look at our site in a vacuum, sometimes you think, well, that's a lot going on there. But then when you see it in comparison that what may have been there before, it really does fit perhaps even better than, I know we're at some level disappointed with it, that with Da Vinci not coming here, but I believe that in the long run, perhaps the 185 project will be more sustainable and perhaps more bring more revenue and more economic vitality to the city than perhaps what we are replacing.
Absolutely.
So with me this evening, I have, in case there's any questions that I can't handle, I have Sean Boyle, the president and CEO of Boyle Construction. We went through Boyle's profile last time we were together. Paul Schwartz from USA Architects. As you know, they are on the 7th floor here in the Alpha building, along with Carlos Tovar, who will be the architect from USA on this particular project. And again, I'm John Callahan from Prawn Development. So I'm not going to go any longer than I think we need to, but I did want Carlos to perhaps review a couple of the slides if there was some interest. And then I'm going to talk, because one of the things I didn't speak about, and I think it's very appropriate given the topic and your discussion, Mayor, of the city's finances, that we should talk a little bit about what the economic impact will be of this project once it's completed. And so we'll sort of finish with that and then take questions if that's okay. Carlos?
Okay, excellent. I'm Carlos Tovar from USA Architects. What I'm going to talk to you this evening is about the project, about how we came with this idea.
Carlos, speak into the microphone.
Okay. Sorry about that.
You can face the audience, but you gotta speak in there.
Excellent.
It's being televised.
Exactly.
Streamlined, live stream.
So one of the things is the project, the name is the Confluence. The project's name is the Confluence. Why the Confluence? Is because, as you can see, what does confluence mean? Confluence means is when two rivers get together. Here in this corner is actually when the Lehigh River meet the Delaware. So after all collaborative working as a team, we start looking, okay, this project is actually the confluence. This project is actually the confluence of a lot of things happening. It's the confluence of the community meeting the river. It's about how you get to the city. It's about business meets the residents. In this image, what I want to show you is actually the connection of the river. As you can see, the river from the north going to the south. You see we're all connected by the river in the Lehigh Valley and Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. So as a project, we were not thinking just Easton area, we were thinking what will be the impact of this project throughout the whole Lehigh Valley area. And here is outside. When we start looking at the river connections and the trails in the area, and we actually realize right there they actually meeting the trail is actually missing. So looking at our project, we actually seen that there could be an opportunity to actually to develop that, and we can work with the city. In the next image is a couple ideas of what could happen, be close to the river. Of course, it's an amenity for all the residents in the city and the public. Ideas that you can have a bike ride, you can have kayak ride. This was part of the compressing plant that was developed for the city a few years ago. And actually, at that moment, I took the image from the story, and you can actually see that this location is actually a great point to start development for the city. And this image is interesting. The mayor was talking about of Easton, be part of the community, how we grow the community. We start thinking about this project, thinking about that this is not just even though it's a private project, but think about how we can respond to a project that actually we engage the community. In the sketch on the left side is a typical building, and that will be the typical response. I don't know if you remember the last building that they shown the slide. There was this fortress, this big building had their private courtyard on the center. Kind of like what's happening there. Maybe your reaction will be you create this volume and the volume have this private plaza, but that's not what we're doing. Our response to the site was the other image where you can actually see this site is going to be all open to everybody, creating this main core and this main plaza. Here is actually, if you look at this image, this is looking the building, if you can understand aerial views, so looking from the top. And what I was talking about, the B building is a C-shaped building, it's 6 stories, going to have 180 units. On the bottom of what you can see there is an open plaza for all, private and public. The building C, which is the building on the corner, we have the possibility this building could be of 50 apartment units, or also could be 64 rooms hotel. The building A, it will be dedicated of 8,000 square feet on the ground floor for studios for the artists. And also above that, it will have 10 apartments. So maybe if you're an artist, you get a space there. You can actually live right above. But again, in this image, you can actually see how the project is all open to the community. Here is actually this image with the color. What I showed you is what's happening at the first floor. How the open plaza connects to the amenities of the building. And then there is opportunity of a cinema, performance center. There is opportunities on the red color, pink color for retail. Also for some of the residential amenities. You have on the building on the corner, you have offices, you have retail. And that's what I was talking about, the artist studio. So the nicest thing about that project is it's a project that is open to the community. But the nicest thing, how you create like a sense of community, a public safety, is actually when your buildings are open to all. So you create that connection. So always during the day is always activity, and that's really what you want in a community. Because the floodplain, we raise the building. I'm gonna show you in an image later and a render later. But because the floodplain, what we're keeping on the bottom of the building, or the bottom of the plaza, we're keeping a parking garage. This is going to be 227 parking. And also we're proposing on the side street, because the side slope to the south, from the north to the south, probably will be a great opportunity to have a grocery store or a retail. As you go up, all the floors are similar. The blue are 1-bedroom units, the orange or red are all 2-bedroom units, and again, the purple color is actually a office or proposed office. And here is a layout of if that building on the corner. On the left side, the building become 50 apartments. On the right side, you have a 64 unit hotel. here is what I was talking about. The third floor, as you can see, this is what we're proposing the grocery. But as you can see, the whole side have this plaza that you will able to travel until you get to the higher elevation. And that's under this plaza is what we're talking about of the parking. So you won't be able to see the parking. It's going to be under this elevator plaza. And here is architecture. For the architecture, we're looking a lot to connect from the community and also trying to use a lot of regional materials as the brick, as the masonry. Here is if the building, looking at other ideas, if the building become more offices, you want to maximize the glazing. And this image is very interesting. This is in Forest Street. So what we did was we actually started looking at different images of different windows and different housing in Easton. And actually we started to develop all these components. So you actually get the scale of a residential in Forest Street. Also those, the private entrances, so people on that first floor on the ground will have a sense of public-private, which this is a great thing to develop a community. This is a great thing when you walk by a building, you feel safe because you see people are there, you see the residents and taking care of the flowers, and you create those packets of people. So this is, again, this is what we create. This is how you create community. Again, thank you for your time, and if there is any questions.
Thank you, Carlos.
Yeah.
I'll touch a bit on the economic impact, and then we'll open it up for questions if that's okay. So, I guess the first thing I want to stress is that all of these economic projections are preliminary. We're very early on, and these are going to be sort of high level and somewhat general, and certainly, you know, not completely speculative, but it's all, you never know how the county's going to assess properties. So you want them to be higher, we want them to be lower. I will say that it's estimated that this project will create over 700 temporary construction jobs. Depending on the mix of final uses, the number of permanent full-time jobs created, we think will be upwards of 500 or more full-time jobs for the city. Obviously, if it's office, it would likely be more. The project represents over a $70 million investment in Easton, and I think, you know, in terms of economic and community impact, we shouldn't lose sight also of the artist studios and the opportunities to do programming in that plaza that will be complementary of existing programming that's already going on and is sort of enhancing the existing art scene in Easton. So I think this project also has the potential to have a very strong community benefit as well. But in terms of estimated projected real estate taxes, this would be in general to all three taxing bodies. Again, difficult to predict, but we estimate that a project consisting of the 190 residential units, the 64 key hotel, and the approximately 36,000 square feet of office would generate approximately $590,000 of annual real estate taxes. Again, to the three taxing bodies, we estimate again a project of the 190 residential units, the 50,000 square feet of office, and 32,000 square feet of retail would generate about $575,000 in real estate taxes, and a 240 unit residential project with 32,000 square feet. In other words, the building B becomes not a hotel and not office, but more residential. That would generate about $660,000 of annual real estate taxes. And then when you factor in the EIT to the city, you're looking at approximately another $400,000 of taxes there. So, you know, Mayor, when you said, you know, we're looking at somewhere between $950,000 to $1 million in annual real estate taxes as a result of this project. So, again, early on, but that's kind of in line with what we would expect in the future based on the uses we're presenting this evening. That is all we had.
Any questions from city council members? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, Dr. Ruggles.
Quick, business privilege tax was not added into that, or, I'm sorry, business privilege tax was not added in?
we did not include this, so that would be additional revenue as a result of BP.
Because, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of rentals here, so that's the business
Yes,
gaining income, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, okay.
yes, correct.
Good point. Your microphone, please.
Was the amusement tax also considered?
No,
Okay, well, which is fine, I understand you're being conservative.
yes.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I tried to hit kind of the larger
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
taxes that we.
I mean,
we would
that-
generate.
plus or minus 5%, 10%, seems like.
Thank you, Mayor. Pedro?
Carlos.
Carlos,
Carlos, why I call you Pedro? Carlos.
thank you.
Oh, I know. I was thinking, he looks like Pedro from the zoning board. He just left, by the way. Moved to
He just
Forks
left.
Township. Yeah, he moved to Forks Township. Okay, at this point in the meeting, we're at public comment on agenda items only. If anybody would like to address the city council on agenda items, come up, give your name and address. There is time at the end of the meeting to go up. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Malevsky, and I was on the 185 Street Committee.
Can you spell your last name, please?
M as in Michael, Ilewski. I'm a resident of Easton. I've been here for 20 years, and when there was an opportunity to serve on the committee, it was announced in the local newspaper. As someone who holds a full-time job and commutes out of the city, actually, in my regular life, I happened to be on sabbatical this term and thought that it would be a really wonderful entree into seeing how the city does its business and get a sense of really essentially assessing what type of community involvement we have and whether there's transparency in our government, frankly. And so I'm happy to report that my experience on the committee was one of the finest entrees one can probably make into local government. The committee met at least a half a dozen times. The process was open, civil, decent, and incredibly informative. And as a ordinary citizen with absolutely no experience whatsoever working in local government in my life, it encouraged me to want to actually be a part of something like this in the future. I found that the proposals were both interesting and appropriate. I found that the committee members who we worked with were very, very thoughtful and gave due consideration to a number of issues that came up. Council and city workers participated in the process insofar as they were available to us. They did not have a seat at the table. So when the committee met, the committee essentially, we talked amongst ourselves, and when there were points of clarification or points of information, we turned to our compatriots in the city who could tell us what we were concerned about, answer questions, and so forth. So I just want to say that this process was probably a perfect model for how I'd love to see the city conduct business on this scale going forward. It makes me proud, actually, to be an Easton resident with this type of transparency in our local processes. And I'm very happy that we settled on Perron. It was very intense deliberations. We had a lot of very, very thoughtful comments that were made. The proposals were different, but nonetheless, when we weighed all of the options, we found this one to probably meet the needs of our citizens best. So I just want to thank Mayor Panto for initiating such a process, and I'd like to encourage the city to continue this way in a transparent way.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your service.
Good evening, Council. John Kingsley, 123 South 3rd Street. Thanks, Barbara, for doing that. I think it's safe to say the level of support that the committee had for the process and for the ultimate determination was really amazing. We had 17 members total serving on the committee, 13 of which were present during the final recommendation vote. It was a unanimous vote. And I would say that I think almost all of the committee members came away with a feeling of this is a model for how we should be conducting these kinds of evaluations. And to that end, Diane Haviland, who is also a member of the committee, had remarks that she also wanted to provide. She actually wanted to be here in person. Unfortunately, was not feeling well and wanted to self-quarantine. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to read her comments. They're from Diane Haviland at 44 Center Square. First, I want to thank the mayor and city council for recommending a committee of citizens to help evaluate the developers for one of Easton's signature properties. A special thank you to Dr. Ruggles and Ms. Volcano for the strong and steady support you provided us through all the meetings. The same compliment goes to our dedicated city officials who sat quietly as we debated, discussed, and resolved issues. While you all remained silent, we knew you were listening intently and were truly engaged in our discussion, so thank you. What was most important is that we had a process with a trained facilitator in Karen Beck-Pulley. The process was inclusive in that there was representation from every neighborhood in the city. The committee was diverse as the citizens were from varied personal backgrounds and different professional and life experiences. And there was equality in that every person's point of view mattered and their vote counted. That inclusivity, diversity, and equality enabled us to have really rich discussions and lively debates. Ultimately, we came together and unanimously recommended a developer to you because we agreed on one common interest. That is, we put all agendas aside and were clear that whatever we recommended needed to be in the best interest of our city. I'm proud to tell you that we did that. So why the Confluence? Because I read the original RFPs, I made notes for myself as to how I would think about making any type of decision regarding this property. I shared these priorities with the committee at our first gathering. Importantly, these three priorities did not change for me as they guided my final perspective. In order of importance, they were economic impact, community and social impact, unique retailing attractions. Confluence was unique among the RFPs. Perron's knowledge and understanding of our comprehensive plan was impressive. It appeared that they had studied and listened to what our city, our community, and our culture needed. Plans for a grocery store, a cinema, perhaps a hotel, and varied types of apartments proved to me that Perron did their homework. I also respect that they will continue to assess the exact type of mixed use they will provide in the Confluence. Allowing them flexibility to test, learn, and grow into this building is a wise decision, especially given today's economic conditions. One developer approached the site as what I will call a set-it-and-forget-it design of apartments. This appeared too transactional for me. While Perron met my top three criteria, what really sealed the decision was their approach to the retail space. In other projects by this developer, it appeared they take genuine responsibility to fill and rent their commercial space. Filling the apartments does not concern me. However, providing unique retail opportunities that will thrive while building consistent foot traffic in that area is critical as a gateway to our city. Thank you for allowing me to provide my point of view under these circumstances, and thank you again to Mayor Panto and the city officials for your guidance and expertise throughout this journey. Respectfully, Diane Hammond.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else would like to address city council on 185 or anything else that's not on, that is on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Okay, under the consent agenda, we have a resolution approving a management agreement with the YMCA for the 2020 season. We also have a resolution appointing Rita Messa to the position of city clerk.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved in second discussion.
Did you just say your name when you read the resolution?
I did.
That's awkward.
Third person.
It's kind of awkward.
I just want to congratulate Rita before we take the vote. I want to say that I'm supporting this because I think Rita's been a dedicated city employee for a long time. And although Tom Hess is retiring a year before he wanted to, I wish him well in his retirement. We'll take care of him in another time. But Rita, I want to welcome you aboard. I think it's great that we'll have you as city clerk.
Thank you very much.
And
I have
Delaney
no
will be
more-
there to help you. Right, Delaney? You can help your grandmother.
Get she gets the whole
Is that your
office to
granddaughter?
herself.
That's her granddaughter. You can come from St. Jane's after school every day.
You know what? I'm not going to take off the consent agenda now.
What?
I'm not going to take off the consent agenda now.
Do we table?
Just because the kid's here.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
guys. Okay, ready for
Move
the
to
vote?
second roll call,
Ready
please.
for the vote?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
I always
Aye.
wanna do that.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye,
Mayor Pianta?
Aye.
Copycats.
Congratulations.
yes.
There's no reports to be
congratulations.
received by council. Reports of committees. Council Vice Mayor Brown, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Last night, Financial Committee met. Our director took them through some of the upcoming contracts and read through them. I believe that everything went well according to my speaking with them today. So that was one thing. On tonight's agenda, we do have several things on new business. I'll be introducing Bill number 3, amending 5610 for the financial code. Also, I am going to be asking Mayor to table Resolution F. And that's for the approval for the agreement for AMG.
Can
I'm
we,
gonna be,
Kenny,
yes.
can we just remove it and then reintroduce it,
We can do that also too.
if that's okay with
Yeah,
everybody
we
else?
can remove that. And so, we have a resolution and agreement for the, no, voice pay. Also, the policy for that transition. And also, for the, DT, Corporation, we have a resolution coming forward for that also this evening. That is my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Economic Development, Councilman Volcano?
Thank you,
Councilmember
Mayor.
Volcano?
This evening, I have a resolution authorizing the city of Easton to enter into negotiations with Perone Development for the 185 project. And I would just like to thank all the members of the 185 South 3rd Street property for their time and dedication in attending all the meetings, for their diligence in coming to all these meetings, and the decision of Perone Development to bring before this council. It was a good experience for me. I hope also that we continue to do this because I think it's a very good, valuable tool for the city of Easton, and hopefully we will approve this evening, and I welcome Perone again to the city of Easton for this development.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Councilmember Volcano? Councilman O'Connell, Planning and Code Committee?
I have no report, Mayor.
Councilman Ruggles, Public Safety?
I just wanted to report that I attended a all-day-long seminar down in Lower Merion related to fire equipment. I learned quite a bit, as an example, taking a fire truck from 750 gallon to 1,000 gallon is about $2,000 in that tank. But when you start to add in all of the other things that have to go along with the additional weight and everything else that goes along with that, it ended up being like a $46,000 increase for that one decision. So those are the types of things that we were exposed to, and how making one decision thinking that, oh, it's only going to be another $2,000. It really isn't. And that's the thing with fire trucks, is that they have a lot of different components that have interlocking relationships, and you really have to understand those in order to understand how and what you are actually purchasing for a fire truck. So I think it was a very good conference. Mr. Campos was there with us, and we had, I think it was a very good experience.
Dr. Ruggles, did you, I don't know if you had the opportunity to take a look at some of our trucks, but we have 6-seaters.
Yeah.
and also extended cabs.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
But since we have had that training,
Yeah.
we know a little bit better now.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I did speak with the chief, and those are things that we're looking at very closely, that we won't be ordering trucks like that again.
Right.
With the 6 seats, it should be manned at 4.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, ladder trucks, I mean, just all the different criteria that's associated with that. It's really amazing. Yeah.
So as a follow-up, I just want to let you know that we've scheduled at least a general meet and greet with the gentleman who gave that presentation that's coming up in the next several weeks.
And I might just point out that, you know, one of his recommendations for cities was to come in for, he actually has a company that comes in and does an assessment of the fire department and what equipment you have for your community, what equipment you would need. And I mean, I read a couple of the proposals that he has sent to us already, and he does a very, very good, thorough job. Former firefighter from New York City. He was a lieutenant in New York City on one of their ladder trucks, and he impressed me as being very straightforward and not biased one way or the other. I mean, he's very interested in the fire personnel safety, but he also recognizes the cost constraints that the city has associated with any purchase of a fire vehicle. So, you know, I think as that materializes, I think that's something that we're really going to have to take a look at and see how we're going to be able to go forward with future purchases. Yeah.
Dr. Ruggles, one more item. The police department's here as a follow-up from our last meeting. I don't know, with regards to the parking meters on Northampton Street.
Oh, okay.
If you will,
Sure.
we could have the department give us an update on some of the questions that were asked by council.
Sure.
Okay. Yes.
Captain Lohenis, City of Easton Police Department, 48 North 4th Street. I'll just wait till everybody has one.
Maybe
Yeah, I know.
we remind everyone of the issues we were talking about in the ordinance.
So with regards to the meter conversation and versus the 15-minute parking conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, I just did some detailed analysis on that particular block. The scope of work, I won't read obviously the whole thing, but the scope of work was to evaluate the need of one versus the other, the meters versus the signage. In the details section, I have identified a lot of linear footage and so forth based off of the engineer's drawing, which is on page 3. You could look at that at your leisure. So on the business breakdown on the north side of Northampton Street, there's a total of 9 businesses, one of which has available off-street parking. In comparison, the south side of the street has 5 businesses, 4 of which have available off-street parking. The only business on the south side of the 600 block of Northampton Street without available off-street parking is 612 Northampton Street, the business in question. According to the drawing rendered, the north side of the street could accommodate 20 metered spaces in the available 420 feet. South side, 13 metered spaces. The total cost of the entire project to meter both sides of the street is nearly $21,000 and 33 man-hours of labor to complete. A conversation with the owner of Tierra del Fuego indicated that approximately 80% of his business is either carry out or delivery by way of Grubhub or other type delivery services. Visit to the restaurant revealed 4 to 5 tables inside the business, and weather dependent, he could put 1 to 2 tables outside. His request is for a 15-minute space indicated with a sign designating that time restriction in front of his business. And then the last point of interest is the lost available parking due to line of sight triangles and encroachment upon sidewalk, or rather crosswalks. There's a total loss of spaces in the 600 block of North Hampton Street, up to 13 spaces. With the meter proposal. So with the 15-minute sign proposal, that there would be no additional loss of spaces.
What is the cost of a kiosk?
Depending on the items that you get in it, in the meter itself, it's about $8,300.
Okay. So if we bought 2 kiosks, we would lose no parking, correct?
No, you're still losing parking based on the spaces. The
Well,
meters.
How is it that other cities don't stripe for parking when there's, like I was in Harrisburg the other day, and I went to a kiosk. There's no lines indicating what space there is.
That's their
So-
fault.
What's that?
That's their fault. They should be doing that.
Is
They absolutely
is
should
it
be
a
doing that.
necessity
Absolutely.
by law?
You talking about the boxes, or are you talking about the
No, parking spaces. So if I go to I was in Harrisburg.
No, the lining of the boxing of the space is not a law. I
Okay.
thought you were talking about the line of sight triangles and painting the hatch marks in order to identify that line of sight area.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I'm talking about parking spaces on the street.
Okay.
So you're saying that it's not required by law to actually paint a line for a parking space?
No, but you lose some control over your parking endeavors if you don't have the spaces properly marked.
So my question is, if we were to buy 2 kiosks at a total of $8,300 a piece, that would yield about a $4,000 savings in your proposal.
The industry average on the multi-space meters is about 10 spaces of control for each multi-space meter. So if you're looking at what did I say?
20 on the north side.
I mean, I'm looking at just
2013,
if we
Yeah,
just
20. If you're looking at 33 spaces,
33, right?
you're looking at at least 3 multi-spaces.
so that's $24,000. So it's $4,000 more, and we lose no spaces.
No, you'd still lose. The loss of spaces comes from the line of sight triangles that have to be created and the encroachment upon the crosswalks. That's where your loss of spaces comes from.
But I guess my question is, I mean, I understand what you're saying. The problem exists today. We're not rectifying the problem. All we're doing is putting a meter, a kiosk on the corner or wherever you guys decide to put it. If we're going to dictate site triangles on Northampton Street, the 600 block between 6 Northampton to 644, 646, it would be incumbent on us to look at the entire city then, because if you go to Catella Street, you would lose, I think, where's Dave Hopkins? How many spaces would we lose if we actually followed the site triangle on Catella Street? We would lose like a lot, right? We should put a podium in the back.
From what I recall, when we did our analysis
Yeah.
on Cattell Street, I think it was roughly 80%.
We would lose it. So if we're not,
The problem I have is that the state curb length that you can't park is suburban, not urban. Take, for example, Monroe Street. Hill's Kitchen is 10 feet off the curb, but yet we're required to park 30 feet from the corner, which means you lose 2 parking spaces, and you shouldn't, because the site triangle is blocked by a building, not by a car. So I understand what Councilman Milano is saying, is because we don't do it now. It's not marked. People can park up to the corner. If they get a ticket, they get a ticket. But the fact of the matter is, we should go back to yellow lines, and I know we don't do that anymore, but yellow lines to the property line. So some may be 10 feet, some may be 20, but most of them in the city are going to be 10 feet because the building's there. You go down to the 100 block of Northampton Street. I can't park on the end if I'm going to go into the state store, which I never go to. But the people who are going into the beer joint can't park in front of there because the site distance. But yet the building is 10 feet off the corner, both on Northampton and Larry Holmes Drive. It just makes it, I've brought this up to both Senator Bosco and Representative Freeman, that there's certain things they can do for cities that don't cost them any money. And that was one of them, because there's so many places we could have parking spaces, legitimate parking spaces, that don't block the sight line.
Well, that's why in that particular case, we chose to follow the vehicle code and we went back from, I think it was 20 feet from the crosswalk area, which you can do. Signalized intersections are a problem though. That's a whole nother regulation. So, but from a normal intersection, that's about as much latitude as we could get is the 20.
And that, I'm okay with that, but my concern is that we're gonna, to put meters on this street, we're gonna lose spaces. But if we just put a kiosk, we can keep the spaces there.
No.
No, it doesn't matter.
There's no difference when you're talking about meters, single spaces versus multi-space. There's no difference. It's the mechanism by which you collect your payment.
I think the difference here is that what I hear you're saying is that if you put the kiosk there, you still have to mark off the sight line
Exactly.
triangles where people cannot park. And that's where you actually lose the parking spaces.
Not where the
But I
meter
don't.
is.
I don't think you have to though, because it's not there now. I mean, there's no.
I'm just hearing
No,
what
and
you say.
but I mean, like I said, I was just in Harrisburg. There's no lines on the street where you can park at. You go, you put your you pay for the meter.
It's
the
different.
kiosk.
He's saying that it's the sight triangles that they have to mark off, not the lines on the street.
Right, I get that, but
Okay.
again, my
The
point
same
is
triangles aren't there now.
right.
What you're saying.
But
I don't know that you'd need to, I don't know that the addition of a kiosk would force you to change your existing condition. It's not really a change to the street. The meters certainly would. You
Right.
definitely have to mark for the meters.
so
but
my argument is like if we just put the kiosk there, it doesn't really change anything. We can keep it the way it is.
And then instead of it plugging in the space, you'd plug in the zone.
Yeah.
Like
I just
Harrisburg.
did in Harrisburg on Tuesday.
Right on State Street.
I mean, and I think the money we're going to spend on these things will regenerate by keeping the spaces that we're losing in this proposal. I mean, I don't see, I mean, if we're going to do it for that block, then I think it would be fair to do the entire city then. To really go through the city and mark out site triangles then. You can't, I mean, you can't pick one block because of meters. That, let's not forget, we passed this 2.5 years ago. And we're just bringing this up now because of one business owner, which, in my defense, we rectified this 2.5 years ago. But the meters never put in. So if this is your proposal, which I'm not disagreeing with you,
Well,
I'm no expert, but
I'm not making a proposal, mind you. I'm just giving you the facts and just essentially, if we put this in play, we are now as a city telling people you must park here. Right now, we don't control that curb by meter or other. We control it by enforcement of certain other ordinances, but we're not telling them you park here. If we do this with the meter spaces, we're telling them you park here. We can't then allow them to. We can't, in good conscience, create spaces that are
With our new technology, can we do this? Maybe this will rectify it. Why don't we give him his 15-minute spot in front? Because he is a takeout. And then have 3-hour parking on the rest of the street. What I'm hearing is the businesses and the residents who live there is because the people park there all day and walk down to their employment.
Right.
So with the LPRs driving by, they'll hit somebody that's been there for more than 3 hours. So
could absolutely do that.
takes it helps him, and it helps turn over his other concern is that the other spaces never turn over because they're parked there all day.
What?
So maybe we just do a 3-hour
And
parking
is that
lot and
just a-
force that.
My understanding too is though that the housing project there produces a lot of parking in that block.
Right.
And so it's not just people that are walking downtown.
Yeah,
It's people
Yeah.
who live
True.
there. And if we put meters there, they're going to have to find some other place to park. And so I'm sure.
Sure enough, now around the corner on Union Street.
Well, we did on Fifth Street was we put
sufficient.
meters in on Fifth Street, but gave the residents a parking permit.
Now, is this going to cost us signage? That's it?
One sign.
That's it?
Sign.
The no-brainer.
Like,
Unless we do a 3-hour parking.
Well, that could be on the
Then-
same sign, right?
A dozen signs.
Yeah, right.
We've tried to patronize some of the restaurants down there, And even though they have lots, their lot is full.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
can't find anything on the street to patronize that. We've gone somewhere else. And that is a problem.
No,
So
it
whether
is.
it's residents or
Well, the
employees,
church, what's it
something's
called,
gotta
Union
be,
Street.
gotta be done on that block
The
to
Union Street
help.
project is a
businesses.
problem because it's mostly senior citizens, but they have a lot of grandchildren that live with them.
And limited
Apparently.
parking on the side, Mayor, I think.
Who aren't on a
13
lease.
spots. 13 spots.
Yeah,
for
well,
everybody.
that should be addressed, but it's not our problem to address, unfortunately.
What's the pleasure of council?
I would like to see a turnover down there because of, I think it's hurting the businesses.
Well, I agree, as
So,
it become more business
whatever
oriented.
is-
We didn't have this problem 7, 8 years ago. We didn't have any businesses. Now we have some very
And you're
successful
gonna have
businesses.
the
I agree.
Proposal. of
Chinese
something else
restaurant
going
open up
on that
again.
block.
You got a grocery store going there.
right, but he says he's gonna have enough parking.
Well, he's gonna have a parking deck, but I don't think he'll have enough.
I know.
Not for because the residents are gonna park there.
That's what I mean.
I like the idea of we gotta, Dr. Ruggles brings a good point up about the residents. We're gonna have to look at giving the residents a permit, like we did on Fifth Street, and I would rather see 3-hour parking meters there. Not 3-hour
Fine.
parking signs there and his 15-minute sign. The proliferation of meters we're getting away from them with the LPRs, so. I like the idea of kiosks as well, but I just think for that block, it's still highly residential because even above every one of those businesses are apartments.
Agreed.
Well, if we
Fine.
give them
Can you have
permits, it's
the,
not gonna eliminate the parking on the street.
the ordinance for that
One second.
metered southern end of North Amity Street? I'd like to have it repealed for next council, okay?
And then we'll go with the 15-minute and we'll have them look at possibly doing a 3 hours. Is that?
It's Dr. Ruggles' purview.
I believe we already did.
I would like to see something that's gonna give some
From
turnover.
2017.
15-minute
Then
Let's
you're
do it
gonna,
for next
you're
council.
gonna have to give
Right,
them
but the
permits.
15-minute meter was
That's
already.
still staying, that's got nothing to do
Staying.
with
Already
it.
done.
My ordinance from 2017 gets repealed.
So we're gonna repeal the ordinance
Repeal
from
it.
2017.
Yep.
And then what are we doing in lieu of?
Put 3 hours.
Same thing we did on Fifth Street?
But then you also have to
Well,
extend
we'll have to,
permits.
we'll let the committee
Later on.
decide that, bring a recommendation to council
So basically, all we're gonna do is repeal the 2017
and
ordinance.
enact
If you
it.
need a copy of it, let me know.
And we've
I have
already
it.
done this one. So, Mr. Hopkins will have to put a 15-minute parking space in front of 612.
That was approved, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was.
Regardless, yeah, that's already been,
That's
Yeah.
been approved.
it's been approved.
And I think the police
At the last
department
meeting.
got a copy of that.
We
Okay.
got another 2 weeks for it, though, before it comes
Right.
official.
Comes official, it's 30 days after we approved it. Okay. Moving on to,
Jim.
Thank you, by the way, for putting this together. I mean, it really does provide a lot of good information that we can actually make decisions on. So it was very helpful. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Public Works, Councilman Eddinger,
I have no report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Milan, Administration Committee.
I have nothing, Mayor. I think Mr. Campos wanted to address council on some matters.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yeah, I just,
You're
sorry,
not the
Jim, it
administration
just,
committee.
what's that?
You're not the administration guy.
I know, I tried to get here,
You-
but,
You walk too
the
slow.
Public
be a
Works, no
little quicker
You have to
report.
wait till
Reported
afterwards
Too
now.
quickly.
You have to wait till afterwards.
No, Lewis is comfortable. He looks okay. I just wanted to give council an update because this will be the last meeting before we begin. So we received the equipment for the garages, and so our new parking system will begin installation on Monday. It won't be functional till probably, we're shooting for around April 10th, which will give us a couple weeks before the deadline
Can I
from
get my
the.
private number unlisted before then?
I think it's
House
going to go well. It's well thought out. We're waiting on the signage. The installation will go in. Tracy's going to help with social media and noticing. We're going to try and get as much education out there as possible. We're certainly, I've spoken to the police. We're certainly going to do warnings and education. We're not out there to try and punish people. It's really a new process. Everyone has to kind of learn what the rules are, and it will be for Pennsylvania drivers anyway. It will be pull-in parking only. just because the license plate has to face the drive aisle in order for this process to work.
And my understanding is that when you go into the garage, you park your car, and then you pay?
Correct.
You pay before you leave the garage.
You pay before you leave. It's the same
What if
concept
you
as a parking meter.
don't know how much, and you don't want to use the app?
It would be, it's the same as using a parking meter. You would,
Right, okay. Gotcha.
and we would encourage people because, the world
the
is
app.
moving towards the app, and then you can extend your time remotely. Everything will be enforced through the LPR. Monthly parkers, the LPR system will have the license plate entered in so that the LPR would know that you're supposed to be there and that your account is valid. Other than that, we've recommended, as opposed to other cities who are doing, $35 for failure to pull in properly, we've recommended a fee of $10. We think it's enough to change the behavior, but we don't want to be overly heavy-handed and
The issue
punitive.
here is that in the parking garage at Pine Street, because of Crayola, it's $3 an hour. So if I know I'm going to be 5 hours, it's cheaper for me just not to. I'll back in, so I only get a $10 ticket. I was thinking about that. I thought it was great.
No, if a car is backed in, the PEO simply gets out of the car.
Oh, and records it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only downside to that is the plate wouldn't be read actually by the LPR. So if there were other issues like warrants or summonses, it wouldn't show up for that transaction.
Good.
That's correct, right? Yeah.
You're still gonna get a ticket, right, when you go in, or no?
No.
Well, we hope not.
Oh, no tickets, okay.
Dr. Ruggles.
You go in-
Oh, I thought you meant a parking ticket. No,
No, I'm
there's
talking
no
about-
ticket machine. You'll simply pull into
Pull
the
in.
garage, buy your time. You can
Go down,
extend
buy your
your
time,
you
okay.
can extend your time remotely
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
So it's my understanding that Allentown has implemented this and that there's been a lot of
Problems?
major problems over there associated with it. Have we contacted them to try to understand what those are and mitigate those?
Yes, we've spoken to a number of authorities in the area and out of the area to find out what they're doing. My assessment of that was there was not a public education effort. I think there were no periods of warnings. The ticket for failing to pull in, which I think was a big part of it, or not parking correctly, was instantly $35, and I think that took some people by surprise. And we're trying not to come out of the gate looking to punish people. We're actually trying to educate them so that it works for everybody. But in the end, it will be pretty convenient. We are going to leave after some thought, we are going to leave the exit gates in to control speed, but they will open automatically. There'll be a loop there as soon as the car pulls up to it. The gate will pull up, but at least the car will slow down, and that will ensure that we can get an accurate vehicle count from the magnets that we have in each lane, because the parking logic system that we have in place, we want to keep as accurate as possible because parking demand is going to increase, and we want to make sure that that stays accurate, and that and because that's tied to third-party applications right now, so people coming into the city will know how many spaces are available at each garage before they even get here, so they can.
I noticed particularly on the Pine Street garage, because I'm over there quite often, but I noticed that count was down quite often over the course of this last month. I mean, it wasn't being displayed.
It was. There was a mechanical issue which has since been repaired.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Campos, did you have something?
Just a couple items. I noted the newsletter that was sent out. We wanted just to try to make sure that everyone has a copy. I'm going to be reaching out individually to council members so I can just talk to you all and get some input if there's any, because we would like to send that newsletter out sooner.
Is that one the way it is set up now, gonna be the one sent out?
Yes.
Because some of the stuff's outdated, but,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, things have happened.
Yep. It's a March newsletter, so.
I mean, I think it was very good, and I just saw one misspelling on the first line. I think it was newsletter was misspelled.
We'll take a look at that. Good catch.
and I'm not very good at catching that stuff.
Second thing is, as was noted by Dr. Ruggles, I had attended a training regarding the purchasing of fire apparatus, et cetera. We talked about that. And then third item, which I believe the mayor is going to touch upon, and it's the coronavirus. I don't know if you're going to speak to that during your mayor's report, particularly what some of the actions that the city is taking. I had mentioned that I would give an update. I'm going to defer to the mayor on that.
One more. I actually have a housekeeping request. If we can, like these things that are delivered to us during council, can we get like heads up before they're put on our desks or council, like email to us? I know you tend to give us a lot of stuff right before council meetings, and we don't have any time to digest it. So from this point on, can we get stuff emailed to us as they're readily available? Because I can't digest something like this in a matter of minutes. So
That's not a problem.
thanks. I have nothing else, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Report of Solicitor, Mr. Shear. Welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Are you away?
I talked to your former predecessor today, your predecessor.
Oh, did I? Well, I have an appointment on Friday to speak with him.
That's what he said.
There is no special report, but I do want to point out that when you get to item 15D, the agreement with Novice Pay based on a sidebar with Mr. Lisanicki, in a request that be withdrawn from this meeting and will be resubmitted at the very next meeting. The form itself that you've seen in your package is not changed at all, but there's also an order form that details the charges that wasn't in there, and there has been a favorable renegotiation of one of the elements. So in order for the council to have the full agreement plus all the charges in front of you when you vote on it, my suggestion is that it needs to be resubmitted so you have that in the package.
So
Which one was that? I'm sorry, Joe?
That's
doing D, E, and
15D as in David.
So then, does E come off as well? Because it's the policy in between the two.
Well, you can have, the policy really, if you want, the reason for taking this off has nothing to do with the policy.
Okay.
But if,
Well, let's take all three.
I'll defer to Mr. Lisanicki.
It makes sense.
The policy is basically a workaround until the ordinance change is put in place to allow for electronic signatures. So that's what it is. So if that gets looked at today or in 2 weeks,
Okay.
it wouldn't make a difference.
All right.
So are we removing?
Wait till we get there.
So you're taking.
I would take all three off.
That's what I'm saying myself.
We're taking off
Makes sense.
bill number
D, E,
3
and F.
too.
Well, you certainly can, because they can't
F.
sign anything until after they get Novice Pay working.
Yeah. All right. Well,
D, E,
since
F,
we're talking about bills out of order, then, did Mr. Clark speak to you today about a question I had last night?
I don't know. He spoke to me about many things,
All right.
whether
Did
it
he
specifically had to
speak you
do.
about 56-10 subsection C,
Well, we've been talking about that.
subsection C
Financial code.
specifically? Okay. Do you want to answer, or you want Mr. Sheeter to answer?
No, if there is a witness, which there obviously is, then he could answer that. I have to see what subsection C is.
Well, my question to Mr. Clark was, in subsection C,
Yeah, by the way, could you send me an email prior to the meetings when there's issues coming up
well,
like
it wasn't
this?
an issue, it was just a question.
Yeah, no, even a question. Thank you.
It
50
says all pension checks shall be signed by the Director of Finance and or the mayor. My question, Mr. Clark, was couldn't we just put the Director of Finance and or their designee into that section and or the mayor?
Well, my recommendation on dealing with that entire ordinance section was to, yes, I think you can combine them. I think that when you go back to the Home Rule Charter and the whole purpose of the controller, my sense is that this section should be modified to have the mayor or the Director of Finance be the individuals who sign all the items, A, B, and C, and that at the end there be a section that the controller or his deputy shall approve all such signings. I mean, that was I had suggested that. So
I don't think that we resolved, that issue, because that issue came yesterday. I also had some questions regarding most recent Auditor General findings with regards to just the pensions in general, and would rather float that back to the auditors to take a look at that as well, because we haven't been cited on that specific issue. We have been cited on other issues with regards to ordinances and resolutions. I thought it was a good question. It's making us think on our, you put us on our toes. That's something that we have to dig a little bit deeper on. I thought it was a good question. We did talk about it in depth this morning, but we
Okay, so the answer is it's still under review.
yeah.
The words "or the designee" is under review.
The entire section is
Oh.
under review.
So
In the past, everything we've had is the financial director or the mayor.
Right.
So that's, I don't see any reason why that changes. The controller has to be the controller or his deputy.
Sure.
And that's all there should be. I mean, there shouldn't be anybody else.
So are we withdrawing this ordinance then for tonight?
Is it on the agenda for
Yes.
tonight?
It's bill number 3. It's on the agenda
Bill number 3.
for
For
introduction.
introduction.
I mean, I think it's.
That's up to you. I mean, I'm telling you, I have some questions still in the wording, so
Well, then
We should probably withdraw.
it wasn't my,
it's not my ordinance. It's Mr.
mine,
Mr.
mine.
Mr. Brown's.
At this time,
I'm just making a suggestion. We kind of.
Withdraw it right now? Do we get more answers?
yeah, I think.
Yeah, because in 2 weeks it may be
Completely
ruled
changed.
a major change.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Shear,
Yes.
just so I'm clear, I just want to know should we put "or the designee" in subsection C? That's all I want to know. In addition to the director of finance and/or the mayor. That's all.
Well, if we're withdrawing it, and I'm sorry, if we're withdrawing it, can it be discussed to be what it's gonna be introduced as in 2 weeks?
Let's talk to the solicitor. I wanted to add 3 words
Suggestion.
to make it clean. We can discuss it at some point. I just want to make sure that we have it for discussion then.
You know what, my answer was that if elsewhere, the director of finance and/or mayor were the people involved, I need to know why payroll checks were differentiated from pension checks.
Fair enough.
I don't have a good explanation or reason to believe that. And if the pension checks are only the director of finance and/or mayor, then I think we should be following the same pattern throughout. I'd prefer to see a section D that says all such checks have to be approved by the controller or his deputy, her deputy, or their deputy.
They're down.
Deputy controller is the clerk.
Not anymore.
No,
It-
all the
that-
time. It's his
the-
voice.
Under our home rule charter, the
Sorry.
controller is the one who decides who
Chooses.
the deputy will be, and that needs to
Haven't been
be,
done yet.
Mr. Hagel has to give some consideration who will be replace Mr. Hess as his deputy.
Has he been notified of that?
He's
Yeah,
aware.
pretty sure.
Is that by resolution or by ordinance?
No.
That's a home rule
His voice
charter.
doesn't have to be
I don't think it was any.
in
It's not,
stone
it's not a
anyway.
councilmanic action.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just appoints him or her. Okay, anything else, Mr. Solicitor?
No. You'll be reporting on the Adams settlement, and if there's anything you need me to add, I'll add it then.
Okay, it's a legal matter.
In fact, I'm very happy that
Yes,
we got
we
to
are
that
happy.
stage.
And so is Mr. Murphy, very happy. He wanted me to tell you that. And he wanted to say congratulations to you, Ms. Mesa. Report of the mayor, just 2 things. One is the Adams Outdoor, which is the easiest one. We did have a press conference on it last week with City Council, and it's on the agenda for tonight. I hope that everybody approves it. They have already executed all the agreements. The Adams, again will say thank you to the Adams Outdoor Group and the Benner family for coming to what I think was a mutually beneficial settlement, and certainly takes a lot off of our shoulders from the city, since it was a $7.5 million lawsuit. The more important issue tonight is the coronavirus. I mentioned it under my State of the City. My weekend in Washington was filled with professionals. Dr. Allen was excellent, and the other physicians and health professionals that we had there were very good. Vice President Pence this morning was excellent with at least the dissemination of information. more and more things are getting canceled. Melissa's here from the college. That the college has made a decision to close after their spring break next week for another 2 weeks and cancel all on-campus events such as the mayor's State of the City breakfast. I don't care. And seriously, I just found out the Easton High School, Easton Area School District Foundation dinner in April has been canceled. 2 of my friends were being honored. So 3 of my friends. Yeah, Chuck Amata's in that group too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, these are the economic side. The school district, it's our largest fundraiser for the foundation each year. The chamber makes money on our State of the City as well, but bringing people together is not a good idea right now. So I would suggest that you continue to read up on prevention measures, try to avoid large crowds, try to avoid if you're a senior citizen or a person who has a underlying health condition is what they're saying. So if you're an active person who exercises but you just had surgery, again, avoid people. Stay in your house if you can. If you're 92 years old like my father, stay in your house. Don't go outside. But again, we are very fortunate that in the United States, most of us, if we get the coronavirus, will be more like the flu symptoms. But if it gets really serious, you can start having breathing problems. So please be cognizant of that. But as I stated, the copays have been voided for all people who go to their family doctor, have the coronavirus test, and it's being covered under your health insurance. So, I mean, I don't know what else I could say. Don't shake hands. Don't try to avoid contact with by hugging. Even family members, you don't know if they're carriers. Wash your hands, which you should be doing anyway. Especially before you touch your mouth. Children are pretty much immune from this, but if you're coming home from work and you have a young child, and like my daughter's 5.5-month-old baby, I said, you know, make sure your husband, he works in New York City. Make sure he showers, takes his clothes off, puts new fresh clothes on before he touches my daughter or granddaughter. Make sure he doesn't touch her just coming in. Oh, how you doing? You know, and because it is serious that we should be careful and cognizant of the same types of things we should be doing for all other illnesses. This one is the same, if not worse. So we should do that. But I did. The National League of Cities has a lot of information coming out. We're bombarded with that. Yesterday's sessions, both the morning and the afternoon, were spent solely on this issue. All the other issues were. But I did get to 2 good sessions on affordable housing and homelessness. So that was good. And criminal justice reform. So. There's no correspondence. There's no unfinished business. New business. Madam Clerk, we're going to jump right to letter B, the Adams Outdoor Agreement.
Well,
But we are.
A, going to withdraw.
Oh,
We're going to withdraw bill
we
number
didn't do that
3.
yet? Okay, yeah, we want to withdraw. We need a motion to withdraw.
I make a motion to withdraw.
Second. Moved in second. Roll call.
Hang on 1 second. I don't know that we needed a motion.
Or,
Well, he's tabling it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's more, the
Well, we're
actual
gonna-
motion is tabling for 2 weeks.
But we're going to withdraw it because it's going to be changed.
So we'll table it for 2 weeks. It'll be a different bill.
It's not being tabled, though, it's being withdrawn.
But it's being tabled state specific. It's not being withdrawn because it's going to come back it's going to come back next week, 2 weeks from now,
Yeah, but as a different ordinance.
but on a different bill. It's still going to be bill 3.
You still want it to be bill 3.
okay, that makes sense.
All right.
But we're going to,
Hang on a minute. Okay, on the vote on that is Mr. Brown,
aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto.
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Milan approving a settlement agreement and general release between the City of Easton and Adams Outdoor and et cetera.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Moved in second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor Panto.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles.
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano.
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Sandra Volcano, directing the mayor and the city administrator and the city solicitor to enter into negotiations with Perron Development regarding the 185 project.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
And
And then,
clerk, if you could, I'd like to, remove, D through F, please, as together all at one time.
so we're gonna remove invoice pay, we're gonna remove the policy, and we're gonna remove the AMG.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Roll call when you're ready, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
We have a resolution being introduced by Ken Brown approving an agreement with Diversified Technology Corporation for the monthly billing of utilities as well as the billing of real estate taxes.
Move.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Dr. Ruggles.
I have a question on this. First of all, last night, I thought we had 9,000 and some in that cost estimation. There were 9,000 and some billings, right?
Correct. Correct.
In this document, there are 8,700. On page 3.
There were several iterations of the document, so let me check here. Yesterday we did go through invoice pay was 9,500. And we said approximately 9,000 for diversified.
I just remembered a 9,000 number that you presented last night in that budget item.
I rounded 9,000. It just for the PowerPoint presentation, but the actual calculation was based on the 8,700.
Okay. Second thing on page 5, there is in that they're not numbered, but the very last one in the startup services section, it said that there's an option there. Are we incorporating that option, or it just says option? So I don't know if we're actually doing that or not doing it, or
We had not planned on doing that at this point.
okay. In your analysis last night, as I recall, the postage was in there at 50 cents a letter that was going out as far as the cost estimation is concerned. And I see in this that they're going to be going at bulk rate. What impact does that have on delivery? I mean, I've heard some pretty bad stories as far as bulk rate mail that takes long periods of time to actually get to where it is going. So in this, they said that mail bills using bulk rates whenever applicable, and I would think that that was probably all the time for them. Have we thought about that and how that might impact how people receive these bills?
We did check with other customers, and they did not note any concerns with bills getting out to the customers.
And unless I am not remembering correctly, and that's entirely possible, but I thought that you said last night that these contracts that we have are, or I guess this is agreement, it's not a contract. That this agreement is one that we can kind of drop anytime we want.
Correct.
If I go to page 8 on this, it says, service will continue for a minimum of 60 months and may not be canceled during this period. I would think that we have to do this for 5 years.
Correct, unless there were basically, if there was a default, so that.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Well,
but I mean,
yeah.
this isn't something that we can just say next year, oh, we're not real happy with these guys, we're gonna get out of this, which is what my understanding was last night.
Okay.
We're locked in for 5 years, essentially, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, even though we're not happy with it.
Yes, that's correct.
I have a question. I apologize because I've been away. In our collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME, does it impact it? We're eliminating an AFSCME position.
We're not eliminating any position.
Well, we're not filling it.
We plan on filling it, but in that position, but the job description is going to change.
Right. I understand what we're going to do and where we're going to put the person, but is it the same salary?
It's a clerk 1 or clerk, what is that, clerk 2, 3? It's coming at the.
I
base
just
level.
don't want to get hit with a grievance that we lose that says we have to put a person back in there at the same price when we're using estimates today of what we expect to do. And if we have to bring somebody back at the current salary of that individual, that changes that number of savings dollars a lot.
Mayor, it's a base level clerk position, so it's at whatever tier it's coming in at, so that's already set. The second thing is that that position hasn't been filled so far in the first quarter. Until these agreements go through, we'll make a decision internally to fill that position.
And
Yep.
sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Lisinecki.
No, I was just going to go back to.
Well, yeah, I want to go back to that myself.
Yes.
because
So I'm sorry. In the review that we went through yesterday, AMG and Invoice Pay did not have contract terms, but I did spell out that Diversified did have a 5-year contract term. So I apologize, that was spelled out.
Well,
That's a little bit unnerving to me as well. I don't like getting into a long-term contract. What if they stop collecting, they're sending out their bills, but we're not getting the money in, or I have a concern about a 5-year lease. It's a long time without being able to, I'd like to, I would think we should go back and negotiate that if either party is unhappy, they have to give 90 days notice and get out.
I think
I
that's
have
a
a
good
problem
way
with the
out.
bulk.
I mean,
Problem is the bulk, yeah.
I don't have a problem so
I
much.
do.
They can decide to, once they give us a price, I don't care if they send it FedEx. That's up to them. And their savings, their delta on the savings is going to be to do a bulk mail. I understand that. But my concern is 5 years. I mean, this is a substantial amount of money that's owed to the city between taxes and water, or sewer and trash. 5-year term, I didn't catch that. That's a good catch. And I read that down in Washington.
This is contradictory too. It says, if you go down to the default, it goes to say, notwithstanding, let me go to the mic. Notwithstanding, foregoing, the authorities shall have no obligation to provide the notice of or permit the curve of the default more than 3 years during that term.
that still doesn't, if somebody defaults or,
Yeah, that's different.
that doesn't do what they say they're going to do in the
So that could
agreement,
be,
then
so
yeah.
that's what I
you
mean.
get
We can
out.
go back.
Right,
Right.
yeah, well.
If they're doing everything right, spell it.
Well, they may not be doing everything right, but they're doing everything.
Right, they're
Right.
doing everything.
Right.
Even though we don't
may not
feel
be
it.
getting
Yeah,
money.
I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Mr. Shear, did you review this contract, the agreement?
I would have reviewed it and I would have raised the question.
I think you should go back to them and tell diversified technology that the council won't approve unless the term is changed. Blame us. A 5-year term is for something that's novel to us. We've never done this before. We've always done our own billing, our own collections. I'd hate to give it up for 5 years and find out that we made a mistake. Dr. Ruggles.
Just one more question on this, and this, I guess, is going to go to Joel. The second piece that we had here is just a quote. It's not an agreement. And I don't ever recall, maybe we have, accepted somebody doing work without a contract or some sort of an agreement. I mean, this is just a quote.
My interpretation of the quote would be that that's the binding, that's what the parties are agreeing to. That's the rate, that's what's said.
But I mean, there's nothing here as far as how long this lasts or anything. I mean, the previous one was an agreement. It was just well spelled out as to what we're agreeing to. When we get a quote, all we know is the number is what we're going to be paying for this, but we don't have any idea of what they're going to do. I mean, we haven't gotten any documentation as to what this quote is for.
I'd have to refer to the people who are going to be working with them. My impression was there was going to be $1 a unit for the real estate tax billings and 30 cents for lockbox receipt and post payments per unit. I mean, that's the way I would read it, interpret it, 9,000 monthly items of each.
But I mean, it seems to me as there should be some sort of an agreement saying,
All of that.
this is what we are going to do. I mean, if we just have real estate tax billing $1, okay, but what are you going to do?
But the intention was to have both of these, the utility billing and real estate billing, kind of be a package deal. So this was an add-on to the utility billing, which was our first exposure or first plan of attack with diversified. So if council would prefer that we have it more clearly spelled out that this is an add-on and would follow all the same terms, then
yeah, I mean, that'd be fine. That'd be fine if it said that it's going to follow. But I mean, even in the resolution, it says that as well as a quote from them. It doesn't say that is following the previous document.
Okay.
Mayor, would it be okay if I make a suggestion about just withdrawing this for 2 weeks then? Would that be okay?
Okay with
I think
me?
we have a lot of unanswered questions and.
Well, let me ask the question. It was moved and seconded. Why don't we take a vote to not approve this one and bring back something new at the next time just to keep it in record?
I'd be fine with that.
Fine with me. So a no vote sends it back to the negotiating table to not only get the term reduced, but also answer the questions that Dr. Douglas has raised.
All right, I'll take a roll call on that,
Roll
just
call.
for record, okay? Mayor Panto?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Ettinger?
No.
Mr. Milan?
No.
Mr. O'Connell?
No.
Dr. Ruggles?
No.
Mrs. Volcano?
No.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna go back.
At this point, we're at the public comment
Oh,
on.
we got one more.
We gotta go back to C, that I took off the.
Oh, you took it off. That's right. I'm sorry.
They can't.
Well, we could let her family left, so why is the sense doing it?
Well, I'm not the only one. We have a resolution being introduced by Peter Milan, amending the 2020 salary and rate wage resolution.
You need to move.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Moved in second discussion.
My discussion is, I noticed that it says that we are deleting the position of Assistant City Clerk. It was my understanding that we were not gonna delete that position. We may not fill it right away, or we may not fill it at all, but it was gonna stay on the books. That's
Fine.
how I understood it.
And I think we agreed beforehand, we'll just the only change that we made is to the city clerk's position. not the assistant city clerk will stay on. So you wanna make that as an amendment?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment that the portion of that resolution eliminates delete assistant
Well, that,
city clerk.
actually, you just remove the resolution because that's the only change.
No, there's
No,
another
it's not.
change on highways.
There's two other changes.
Oh, I'm sorry,
there's
I'm
also
sorry,
city
that's right.
clerk's
That's
change.
true, that's true. Highways.
And
Okay, I
city
need a
clerk's
second on
salary.
the amendment.
No,
Second.
6,000 less.
what was it?
Yeah. Because
Now-
of,
Okay, oh, yeah.
Board of Health.
And a vote?
Well, go ahead,
Okay.
roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye. Now we're at public comment.
No, you gotta vote. That
Oh,
was-
now we gotta vote on the motion as amended, I'm sorry.
Hang
I've
on.
been, it's been a long day.
It has. Hold on a second.
And I ripped my pants getting into Uber. Not rip, I didn't rip them. The seatbelt clasp ripped them and ruined my suit pants.
Edit that part.
It's not like I split them.
Now you have a sports jacket.
No.
It was Dr. Joel about suing Uber then.
Oh, they tried.
All right, roll call. Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Now we're at public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to address city council on any issue pertaining to the city of Easton? Melissa? Stephen? Father? You're just here for
Father.
the joy of it?
Taking it all in.
For what?
Oh, it's penance.
Penance.
I got it. That's good.
Oh,
That was
that's not
good.
very nice.
That was good. It is Lent.
It is Lent.
We can go to confession in the back.
Your friend Bill Murphy was also talking about you today as he misses his Lenten services there every day. Yeah, he is a good man, even though he's moved to 350 miles away.
Bad choice.
Nothing? Wow, Kurt. Okay, roll call for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Sal,
Yes.
when you use Uber, do you just call when you?
You gotta have your account.
You gotta put it on your phone, yeah.
You know why? No, no,
Hey,
no.
Louis.
My neighbor
Yes,
does Uber.
sidebar. Just a